In this video, I'm going to attempt to survive a month on a single chunk in hardcore Minecraft. The infinite world we know and love has been very dramatically shrunk. Despite this, however, this chunk has access to a stronghold, a nether fortress, and so on. All I have to do is survive 30 days. How hard can it be? By the end of this video, I want to have explored the nether, found the end portal, and acquired full enchanted diamond armor. This is hardcore Minecraft on one chunk. Just like that, my hardcore one chunk world was underway, and I wanted to start off by trapping the animals that were roaming my island. It's fair to say they weren't too happy that they were going into captivity, but I'd take good care of them. Soon enough though, the animals were down in the pit just where I wanted them. The process of deforestation was starting, and soon enough I was able to make some tools and then upgrade those tools. I planted some seeds that I had got from the grass, and then I swiftly transitioned into the mining process. I quickly found something very interesting, a mob-filled ravine in my single chunk. Now it was going to be dangerous if I wanted to go down there, but I'm a man who fears nothing. Okay, that's a complete lie, but I wanted to explore. While paving my way a safe way down, I found my first sight of iron. This would be very helpful for creating better tools and armor. While there was a very good amount of iron, there was lava right underneath, and I had to be careful. I needed to traverse this area with caution, or else I could end up burning alive before this world's even really began. I ended off the day by smelting all the iron I had managed to obtain. There was more very close by, I just knew it, but these were early days, and that means early moves. I robbed the sheep of their wool, created a bed, and I went to sleep. And just like that, day one of this adventure was over. Day 2 began with me retrieving all the iron I'd missed out on yesterday. I crafted a shield so I had some mechanism of defense, and also a chest so I could store all my useless things. Now any sensible person would see all these mobs, realize they were on hardcore, and turn around, but the problem is I'm not a sensible person, and once I locked eyes with that chest, I knew what I wanted to do. The great battle had begun, and first it was me v zombies, but then a creeper joined in and blew up some of the zombies for me. Honestly, I was grateful, because the less of these enemies I had to take out, the better. I dropped down and went to mine up the iron, but then I found something very interesting, mossy cobblestone, and that only meant one thing: there was a spawner on the other side of the wall. Now I knew exploring a monster spawner would be way out of my capabilities right now, so I went for the chest, but something awful nearly happened. The creeper blew up the chest, but luckily the items survived. I had to take out yet another creeper if I wanted to get those items down beneath me. I took care of the second creeper, which left me to those items. And in that chest it seemed there was a single carrot and a single potato. And on the surface, that may not seem like much, but I knew I'd be able to create myself a thriving farm with this. I chopped through some more iron and I almost dug into the spawner, but once I got a peek what was in there, I realized I'm definitely not ready for that, so I returned to the surface. And by the time I resurfaced, the sun was already setting, so day 2 was coming to a close. Day 3 began with me venturing back into the ravine and mining my first bit of coal. My shield was coming in very useful to block off shots from skeletons. With the little bone meal I made from the bones that I got from skeletons, I started farming through my potatoes. I wanted to get enough so I could start a reliable farm. I began marking out the foundation for my farm, and I decided to go off the chunk for this to give myself a bit of breathing space. Although I did realize that if I fell off my farm while trying to build it, I would be in a bit of trouble, so I started putting water around my island, so if I did fall off, I could maybe catch myself and swim back up to safety. This is how I ended the 3rd day of this challenge. Day 4 began with me continuing to make my farm. This was important to me because I wanted to make my farm not only look good, but effective, so I made the farm a priority. I had my potatoes planted and a big grin on my face. This was only a small step in the grand scheme of things, but I was just very happy to have my first structure laid down. In the future, I'd definitely make my farm look a lot nicer, but for now, I was over the moon with my progress. I did have a tiny issue, however. The hole down to my cave was filled with monsters, and I had to clear them out before I could go mining again. I managed to vanquish these foes with ease, but I knew soon I'd have to upgrade my gear. I managed to end off the day with some good old tree slaughter, because if I wanted to be building more structures, I'd really need wood. I bone mealed some of my potatoes and started the process of replanting. With all of the iron I had collected from the ravine, I smelted and I started making myself some armor and a better pickaxe. Oh, and don't forget the Chopper 3000. I did seem to have quite a severe case of a mob infestation in my mine shaft. I knew I had to do something about this, and torches were necessary. I couldn't be dealing with a swarm of mobs every single time I went down. And it was even worse in the ravine. The mobs were turning to total anarchy. They were attacking each other. I just wanted to grab some popcorn and sit back, to be honest. I knew at some point I'd have to go exploring down here, but for now, I had bigger things on my mind. For instance, going to sleep. Day 6 was when I realised that to do any of the fun stuff, I had to get the boring stuff out the way first, so I proceeded to surround my island with safety water. This was totally necessary, but it did unfortunately use up the whole day. Day 6 was not a fun one. But day 7, on the other hand, was very exciting. I had great plans for a tree farm that could be on my island, so I got to work. Now, this farm for the time being was very small, but as time went on and I needed to build more structures, the farm would only keep expanding. I was still having a major issue with all of the monsters hiding away. I really needed to figure a way to counter this, or else I was going to be swarmed by monsters, and if there were too many, I wouldn't be able to handle them and they could overpower me. But this seemed like a mission for another day, and I went to sleep. Day 8 came around, and it's fair to say I was awoken with a surprise. I was very shaken up from the whole experience, so I made myself feel better by breeding animals. Yes, this is how normal people feel good about themselves, is it not? Now, despite my incredibly strange love for pain and suffering, I knew I had to make these animals somewhere slightly nicer to live, so I made some slabs because I had plans to make a proper home for the animals. Let's just say I don't think they'll miss their 2x2 pit very much. Day 9, more like day mine. I'm so sorry you had to hear that. I was just mining around the outskirts of my single chunk, as I kind of wanted to be able to get further down quite easily, and also I could obviously build some cool stuff underground. I was descending lower and lower, and then... Now, I did only retrieve a single diamond from all of those, and I'll tell you why. Because I was on a single chunk, my resources were limited, and if I mined all of the diamonds, I wouldn't be able to get any extra diamonds after those ones. So my plan of action was very simple. With my iron pickaxe, wait till I can get fortune as an enchantment. So then when I mine diamonds, I get like 3 at once. I mean, there may be an exception where I might want to get a diamond pickaxe so I can go to the nether before I can even get that enchantment, but I figured it was worth the wait. Oh, and by the way, there was now a wandering homeless person on our island. For the first time, we could create torches, and this meant, hopefully, I'd be able to stop some of the monsters spawning where I didn't want them to. And this brings us into day 10. As time was going on, I realized I was starting to get a lot of items in my inventory, and I only had one chest. So I started to dig out what I knew would be a chest room. This way I could store loads of items that I didn't need to have at hand. I was fully aware that the digging may take up the whole day, but I really needed a storage room ASAP, so I was willing to spend a day doing this if I had to. So yeah. How are you guys doing? Have you left a like on the video yet and subscribed? Oh, my small talk is getting worse. Operation Peter was underway. I was cautiously transferring the animals from their horrible, disgusting pit to their new, fresh, in the middle of the sky, fenced area. One by one, the animals moved in to their new home. And to celebrate, they made a newborn baby. After what felt like years, I'd finally managed to dig out the storage room. Now, looking at it, yes, okay, it may need a little bit of renovating, but that was something I could worry about for another time. And you won't be wrong to say that food was now no longer an issue. We were coming very close now to the halfway mark of this challenge, and to begin day 12, I expanded my tree farm. I was just planting down some sugarcane, and I was really quite unsure actually as to what I should do next. But then I had a light bulb idea. I needed to make a mob grinder. Now, if this plan was going to go ahead, there were multiple things that would have to happen. First of all, I would have to spend loads of my precious time mining wood. But the project was underway, and that's what mattered. I didn't have much done yet because nighttime came around very quickly, but when the time came, I would be working on this mob grinder using all the time I had available. I spent the majority of day 13 mining wood because I knew I'd need a lot, but I also filled out my chest room and transferred some of my items into the chests. It's fair to say day 13 was not an exhilarating day. Or did I just bamboozle you all? I made a cobblestone generator. That didn't work. Not my proudest of moments. It does sadden me to admit how long it took me to figure it out, but eventually I did, and we had a fully fledged cobblestone generator. I was starting to think that the majority of my time I spent on this world was actually in my tree farm. I went back down to visit my chest room, but then I made a shocking revelation. I hadn't lit up the place well enough, and there were now creepers who were trying to follow me up to my island. Luckily, creepers aren't the smartest of creatures. I went back down to fight number 2, but he blew up. Luckily, he did no bad damage, but this could have been bad if he blew up one of my chests and my items all fell out of the world. After that traumatic experience, I made the animals breed before I got on with making the mob grinder. In the end, I made a bit of the mob grinder, but I wasn't done yet. There was still a lot more that had to be done. My storage room seemed to be a nice little hangout area for the creepers, and another explosion happened. Luckily again, my chests were narrowly avoided. I strolled back into the ravine so I could check out the mob spawner, but I was greeted by an army of zombies protecting their home. I took the zombies out one by one, and eventually I had ridded of all of them. But upon inspection, the spawner had been destroyed. I think maybe the lava took it out, or when all the creepers were fighting, but there was now no way I could access that spawner, which meant it was even more important that I got my mob grinder up and running. I went back up to the surface and slept. I had some long days ahead of me. Please believe me when I say I spent ages getting wood. I knew the grind would pay off though once I had a mob grinder that could take me to level 30 within the blink of an eye. I began laying out the very basic parts of the mob grinder. It was just going to be a simple one where mobs would get into the water and then be pushed down into the hole, and then there I can finish them off with my sword. Buildings like this take ages, so the next night came round very quickly and I went to sleep. I had my freshly cut wood ready and the grind began. Finally, I had to finish off the roof. It was made slightly harder as monsters were trying to kill me at the same time, but it wasn't anything I couldn't deal with. And just like that, the biggest project I had undertook on this world was over. My mob grinder was fully functional. I was destroying mobs left, right, and center. It was so easy, and I was so happy that I had finally got this done. This way I could literally gain XP by sitting on my chair and left-clicking my mouse. This was quite possibly maybe my best achievement ever. We were now on day 20, which meant we were 2/3 of the way through this challenge, and we were actually going pretty strong. I started this day by mining another layer underneath my storage room, so I had a bit more free space to work with. This also allowed me to stock up on a bit more coal. Even while swimming back up to the top of my chunk, I found more iron, which I knew I could use later. In the end, day 20 was a bit of a chill day, but I couldn't be any more happy with the progress I had made. I had farms working, I had animals, and my mob grinder was working better than I ever expected it to. Things were going very well. I didn't allow myself though to marvel in my own creations for long, because I had a new plan for a fresh project. I was thinking of building maybe a living quarters for my island, because I had some of the essentials, but I hadn't even made myself a house yet, so that's what I got to doing. Unlike my other builds, however, I didn't want this one to bridge off to the side. I actually wanted this to loom directly over the main part of my chunk. I was just filling out the base of it, but nighttime came around the corner. If you're wondering why these days are going so quickly, it's because I'm spending so much time mining wood from my tree farm, but I don't keep all of that in because I don't want to bore you guys. I finally completed the base of the structure, and as a reward I started killing some mobs in my mob grinder. I'm still very happy with myself, okay? Please let me have this one. I chopped down some more trees and started making the walls to my house. I did realise a small issue though. There's very little sand on this island, and there would definitely not be enough to make glass to go as windows in my house, so I had to think of a substitute. As always, I went back over to my mob grinder, but something terrible happened. I got hit with a splash potion of poison, and now my health was diminishing at a rapid rate. Luckily, I knew that this wouldn't kill me straight up, so I took a break from attacking the mobs just in case something did happen. I made my pillars look a little bit more saucy, and I figured that as opposed to glass, I could use fences to allow light into my home. The beautiful sunset appeared though, and I knew it was time to sleep. Now you're not going to see much of day 23 because I made an absolute idiot of myself. I tried for so long to just try and make a staircase up that could go into my house, but everything I did failed horrifically. I'm going to save myself the embarrassment, and yeah, we'll just cut ahead. Why do I even try? What is wrong with me? In the end, I just settled for ladders, what any normal person would have done right at the start. So I got a little too confident on day 24. I saw there was a music disc on the ground and I wanted to get it, and this is where the worst thing possible could have happened. A creeper blew up and my mobs were now let free. I had to block it up as soon as possible because if mobs dropped down and escaped, I could have my whole chunk overran by ferocious beasts. This was an emergency. I managed to temporarily patch it up, and I'm sure this would be the last time something like this would happen, wouldn't it? I would not let something like this happen again, would I? Oh no. Once I had recovered from the events that just unfolded, I finished off making the makeshift windows for my house. I then slowly but surely started to patch up from where I had messed up earlier, and from about 5 seconds after, this happened. I felt tears pouring down my face. But at long last, I had got it all working again and things were looking normal. I gathered some wood and thought about how I had just wasted a full day of this challenge. I watched the sunset and thought about my failures. Day 25 was a very important day, but first of all, I had to clear off the creepers in the second layer of my underground base. And this is why it was so important. I went down the sides to try and get a scope of what else there was around, and then I saw the end portal literally sticking out of the chunk. And I was happy enough that there was an end portal here, but then I saw the library room, and this was amazing. From these books, I'd be able to craft an enchantment table and get level 30 items. This was amazing. I was so excited that the possibility of enchanting was now opening up, and as I rose back to the top of my chunk, I could only think about the immense possibilities. Now the time where I could get a fortune enchanted pickaxe was getting closer and closer. I laid out the bookshelves in such a way that I could get max level enchantments, but to even craft it, I knew I needed more diamonds. I needed 3 so I could get obsidian, and then I needed another 2 to actually craft the enchantment table. I crafted my first diamond tool in this world and got to mining the obsidian, which took a very long time, but I knew I had to do it, so I might as well get it out the way. After a decade or so, I finally had all I needed to create the enchantment table, and I placed it down in between the bookshelves. I remembered that if I wanted any chance of enchanting anything, I'd need to obtain lapis, so that's what I did. I mined a bunch of that and went back to the surface. I was hoping and praying that I'd get fortune straight away, but I didn't, so I decided not to enchant it as of yet. In hope of getting a fortune enchantment, I enchanted some other tools so it would cycle the possible enchantments I could get, but after a while of doing this, there was still no sign of fortune. Sleepy time soon came around, so I figured I'd have to do this another day. It was day 27 and I still wasn't having any luck until I saw fortune 2, and I was 1 level away from it, but that wouldn't be a problem with my mob grinder. I got to chopping, and very quickly I got my way up to level 30. I could finally get my fortune pickaxe and start mining some of the diamonds. Ooh, look how shiny that looks. Look how shiny it is. I couldn't wait to test out my pickaxe, so that's the first thing I did, and it was going amazingly. Oh, we are so rich. We are so rich now. For the first time this video, we were absolutely balling. We had too many diamonds to count. Things were going so well. But I think it was time for a bigger challenge. Maybe even time for the nether. But I think you know exactly what I went to do first. I made myself a full set of diamond armor. And as the sun started setting, I could only think about one thing, and that was how successful this challenge has been so far. Everything had gone amazingly. We were nearing the end of our days in this challenge, but there was still one thing I wanted to do before these first 30 days ended, and that was go to the nether. So I started mining obsidian so I can make a portal. I created the portal next to my mob grinder because I thought that would probably be the most suiting place, because I'm horrifically scared of the nether, and I'm also horrifically scared of anything that could possibly kill me. And the portal was lit. And I wasted absolutely no time going into the nether. I wanted to see what my one chunk in here would look like, and I mean, it looked like a chunk. For the time being, I hopped out of the nether and prepared to go to sleep. This would lead me to my second to last day. Oh, I love this world. I did a bit of enchanting on my armor, and I got some really good enchantments on some, and some not so great enchantments on others. I hopped back into the nether for a little bit, and I wanted to try and find a blaze spawner, because of course, if I wanted any chance of getting to the end, I'd have to get blaze powder if I wanted to make any eye of ender. I continued digging down, and then I found it. I found the little area where the blaze was spawning. I decided to go back up, go to sleep, and get my diamond armor on, because this was something I could not take lightly. This brings us on to our final day. I was fighting the blazes, but they kept setting me on fire, and I was in trouble. Maybe I needed to get myself a potion before I fought these guys, but I figured, you know what? There's more of the nether I can explore, and I don't want to spend my final day dying. I decided instead I would go mining and see if I could find anything super cool or interesting. And I think it's fair to say I did. Mine. Ooh. I didn't gather the ancient debris for the time being, as I figured that could be something cool I can do in the next episode of this. But instead, I wanted to end this off in the best way possible. I really was amazed with all that we were able to do in this short space of time, especially in hardcore as well, the hardest mode in Minecraft. We managed to build some amazing things and go on some amazing adventures. If you do enjoy this, please do drop a like and subscribe, especially if you want a part 2. And yeah, I watched a beautiful sunset go, and I went to sleep, the final sleep of this challenge.